All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And tonight is the Hammer and Nail Show, episode 19. And this is our third time with QB coach Sean McEvoy, who happens to work with Trey Lance as his quarterback coach. He works with the likes of Justin Fields and many, many other players. Let's get this thing jumping. Coach McEvoy, how you been?
Gentlemen, I've been great. It's good to be back. Exciting now. It's like the season is finally upon us here. So I'm fired up just like I know you guys are as well.
Well, you can tell it's summertime because you got a tan going.
I'm out here working. You know what I mean? Like I'm outside every day. So it's easy.
That's awesome. Well, Coach, last time we talked, it was right around, what was it, minicamp or right before minicamp? Definitely after the draft. And I know that normally you guys wouldn't get a lot of time with a quarterback once they are drafted. You know, that's pretty much the end of it, and they're getting ready to be with their team. However, in this situation, you definitely did get some time with Trey. I know that you had that big quarterback camp that you guys do annually, and he was a part of that. And I also know that he worked with you guys during his 40 days away between rookie minicamp and training camp. So why don't you talk to us about what you guys focused on during that 40-day timetable?
Yeah, it's exactly right. You had asked me in the last time I was on how often I'll see Trey, how much we'll be around him. And I think quite honestly, I said, I'm not sure how much between the drafting until the offseason. And we knew he was going to come in for the weekend for a flight school event. So we knew we'd see him for a couple of days. But turns out, obviously they had to end that beginning part of training camp like a week early and got a chance to come out, spent like 10 days out here in Georgia with us leading up to the week. So, his focus was pretty simple. He had the first couple weeks of training camp to just get into the system, right? Be around the players, be coached up on the field for the first time by Kyle, by Rich, and kind of understand what they're asking him to do. And then he knew that after the break, there was going to be an opportunity to really have some type of a competition, to earn his spot, to make his case for getting on the field sooner rather than later. So just the way Trey's always been his whole career, he was going to do everything he could in his power to prepare himself for that. So, I mean, you guys saw, it seemed like everywhere you looked, there was another video of him doing speed training, right? Or he's with a couple of the 49ers receivers out in California and doing that work. And when he was out with us, it was just, making sure he was comfortable within the offense. Obviously he had a good understanding of the scheme on paper. And just trying to continue to work through the reps, especially with some of the different footwork, some of the under center stuff, some of the bootleg stuff that they were asking him to do that was new for him. It was just continuing to get the repetition. So, I think he was out here with us, like I said, somewhere between 7 and 10 days. I think we threw, 6, 7 of those. And every day it was just taking another section, of the playbook, working through specifically those plays, that footwork, making the throws, making sure his eyes were in the right spot, making sure his feet were under control and stable as he worked through progressions. A lot of, like I said, the bootleg stuff on the run and just feeling comfortable, right? I mean, the reality is only through doing are you going to feel more and more comfortable. And he wanted to make sure that when he hit day one of official training camp, that he was as prepared as he could be.
Now, was Mohamed Sanu out there working with you guys at all? I know that he worked with
Yeah. So Mo obviously, has always had a house here in Atlanta and from his time in the Falcons. And we've known Mohamed for years. So Mohamed and Dwayne Haskins are cousins. And so they have a relationship there. And, so I feel like I've known Mohamed now for like 7, 8 years, right? So all this time with the Falcons, the wide receiver trainers that he works with in Atlanta, we link up with them a lot with all of our quarterbacks over the past years. And so it was just an easy, connection there where, Trey was going to go out and throw. And with whether Mohamed was on the 49ers or not, more than likely he would have been in the group that we were throwing with. And obviously, such a perfect connection here to have them as teammates and get to work together. And, obviously, and I think you've seen in these last few weeks of camp what Mohamed Sanu is. I mean, he's such a veteran. He does things the right way. he holds everyone to a high expectation. And I think he's been phenomenal for Trey to just kind of have like as a big brother along this process of just, hey, this is what it's like to be involved in training camp. And I think there's a mutual respect there because Muhammad saw firsthand how hard Trey is working to, be the quarterback he needs to be to get on the field for San Fran this year.
Now, did Scangarello give you guys anything in particular mechanically that he wanted you guys to work on with Trey during his 40 days away?
No, and a lot of the times that won't come from Rich to us, right? Or to Quincy, for that matter. That's usually funneled through the player. And it's very similar, at the college level as well, where they're going to set the expectations on the quarterback himself on what they want him to work on, and then Trey will communicate what the feedback he's getting and make sure that that's something we focus on. So like I said, there's a few instances where, we just have really good relationships with the coaching staffs. This one's a little different. So I personally, I'm pretty sure Quincy has not either had any direct conversations since leading up to the draft with Kyle or John or Rich or anybody involved with the coaching staff.
Okay.
One of the things that's been interesting, as we've watched Trey kind of come on, and one of the things that people have kind of pointed out is that some of Trey's passes, tend to be a little wobbly, that kind of thing. Kind of what might cause a wobbly ball. What are some of the things you work with quarterbacks to kind of fix that? And do you think that's a big deal?
Yeah. So, I think a couple pieces to it. It's actually a similar concern, if you will. The wobbly pass is caused by a similar thing that causes the ball to sail high, which I know we've talked before about, right? And so what we're talking about is just getting that full extension all the way away from the body, kind of right before that wrist snap, which is going to create the spiral in the ball, right? So the simplest way to think about it is the longer that extension is away from the body, the more cocked the wrist gets, the more aggressive that snap is. And so that the more aggressive the wrist snap, the tighter, velocity we put on the spin, and that's what creates that spiral. So in the same conversation, if the wrist is kind of firing early before we get to full extension, that's what can cause the ball to sail high as well. So two of the things that we've talked about in the past, particularly to Trey, are kind of caused by that same thing. So the mindset is just, hey, make sure you're committing to finishing all the way through the throw, right? There's so many things that you're doing, with getting your foot in the ground quick and starting to tighten up that arm path and get his elbow through with good acceleration. That's 95% of what's important. That's what allows the ball to be accurate. That's what allows the ball to get out of your hand with good velocity, keep the sequence in tune. Then the last 5% is kind of like the prettiness of it, right? The full extension, which creates that spiral. So it's certainly something that, I think you need to be aware of, and I think should be focused on correcting. But to your point, Jack, how important is it? It's 5% of the throw, right? And, I think anytime we talk about ball flight and perfect spiral, you have to think about Peyton Manning, right? And his last 7-8 years, I'm not sure how many spirals he threw. He'd be the first to tell you. Now, the aerodynamics of ball flight will tell you that the ball can be a little bit more inaccurate if it wobbles, right? Because it's hitting air. If you're in a vacuum, it wouldn't matter. But when you have currents in the air, it can potentially cause the ball to go slightly off target. Doesn't really affect distance all that much. And so, like I said, I think every time you throw, and Trey's got that mindset of he wants everything to be perfect. So it's certainly a focus point for him. But as you can see, with him and other QBs, it's certainly not affecting his ability to make some really great throws.
Okay. We've got a super chat question for you here, Coach. So Bay Area Baller 18, what's up, Bay? He says, what's up, fellas? Does Trey know how to slide? Is that something that you work on or talk about in terms of protecting himself? I didn't see him slide at NDSU.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, to be quite honest, to answer that question, I'm not sure. It's never been something I've ever worked on, focused on, or coached with any quarterbacks I've ever trained. And obviously we've worked with a ton of really athletic, dual threat type running, from guys like Trey and Justin and Malik Willis and Deshaun Watson, all these guys that have played with that level of athleticism. I think obviously some guys, have a baseball background. Justin Fields was that way, so sliding to him came pretty natural. The reality is Trey's ability to be a physical runner is part of his game, right? It's part of what makes him successful. It makes him another threat in the run game. It's what makes him so difficult to defend in short yardage situations. So, obviously he's going to learn as he develops here to make the determination on the risk reward of how physical he wants to be in the run game. But what I find is for most guys that comes naturally. So I don't think it's anything where, hey, he hasn't done it a lot. It's going to be hard for him to learn. It's hasn't been my experience. You're talking about really good athletes, right? And so he can go around and then get down when he needs to. So, it's funny. I think these are the kind of things that, Trey obviously has his style of play, and then Coach Shanahan and Coach Scangarello will kind of teach him maybe what they want to see out of him in those situations. But realistically is an area that I stay completely out of.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know if he played baseball at all as a kid?
As a young kid, but did not play, was more of a basketball, football player, through high school. So I think he has a little bit of a background early on, but no, certainly not something that would help him too much in this specific place. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me ask you this. As you were leading up to this 40 days of working with him and whatnot, what was the mentality of Trey? Do you believe that his mentality was he's going in to try to take that starting job, or is he going in as a rookie to learn things? Like, what did you see from him? It may not have been a direct thing that he said, but just his demeanor and maybe some of the things that you guys talked about.
Yeah, I mean, to me, his mindset was to go and prepare himself to play week one. You know what I mean? I think that was like so to say that the way he attacked his time with us to prepare himself for the season was no different than any of our quarterbacks who are going into their 6th year as a starter, right? So, I think it's, they're not mutually exclusive. The other part of your question was, he's going in there to learn and develop and be the best he can be. That's certainly it. But, I think this is just the way all these guys are kind of cut, right? I don't think there's a quarterback, coming into the league that's thinking like, I just want to be ready in 3 years to, these guys are
right.
All they've ever done is prepare to play at the highest level, to win games on Friday nights in high school and then Saturdays in college and now on Sundays. So even if the situation was different, even if say Kyle Shanahan sat him down day one and said, all right, Trey, you're going to play 3 years from now and you won't get on the field before then. Even if he was told that direct, I don't think it would change his mindset. Right. I mean, he's going in there with doing everything he can, getting 1% better each day, right? The old cliche. But certainly the mindset was, how can I help the team? How can I get on the field in order to do that? And whether it means he plays 30 snaps or he's the week one starter or, he's prepared in a backup role, or he's ready to go week 5, however it plays out. I don't think that changes his preparation or the way his mindset has been going into it either way.
Absolutely.
One of the things that a lot of young quarterbacks tend to struggle with, and I know that when I was playing quarterback a long time ago, I struggled with this, and I've seen Trey struggle with it a little bit when I watch him on film, at North Dakota State and things like that, is being able to see past linebackers or underneath defenders to receivers that might be open behind them. What are some of the things that you guys do, or do you get into working with your quarterbacks when you're working, with, I guess maybe call it field vision, or I'm not sure exactly how you explain it.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly different strategies. There's another thing where in our role, we don't overcoach that too much with the guys who are in the NFL, because I know that, Kyle and Rich have a way that they want him to process open space, to see the field, and to make, the decisions and the reads and the progressions that they have built into their offense. And so it's one of those areas where you really want to be careful that you're not stepping on anybody's toes and coaching it slightly differently. As a general question, certainly, there's kind of processes that we teach in order to see open space on the field, and to, make decisions faster, right? We talk about accelerated decision making. So to your point, Jack, being able to see that, hey, this route is going to break into open space over top the first level instead of having to wait until it breaks open to then make that decision, right? So there's certainly strategies for that. One of the simplest ones that we kind of teach at the base level, and really our high school, college guys, we focus a lot on this, who maybe don't have as specific instruction where they're playing, is talking about breaking the field into, roughly under 10 yards, over 10 yards. We talk about, Coach Dub Maddox, who created something called the R4 system, talks about a hard deck. It's what like naval officers and Air Force guys talk about, right? We have to fly above or below the hard deck, right? So the idea there is that, below the hard deck, we're talking about defenders that in theory can't take away vertical space, and then above the hard deck, we're talking about defenders, usually your corners and safeties that can play and take away potentially, or can close on vertical space. So to your point, Jack, being able to see second level space and not allowing defenders potentially below the hard deck to interfere with your vision, and seeing that, hey, he looks like he's underneath that route, but the reality is when we throw that as open space, right? I might kind of get into what you were asking.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly strategies like that we talk about. It's something that we talked about more in the draft prep process, and just when we're talking about being on the board, talking about how we work through concepts and progressions, just a way to see space and communicate space really well. So if you're on the board with a coach, in the draft prep process, and he's asking you, hey, if you get this look, what are you looking at or how you're reading it? We want to make sure that the quarterback has verbiage he can use to explain how he determines what's open and how he sees open space on the field. But like I said, I think the day he gets drafted by San Francisco, there's a chunk of his development that gets completely turned over to his NFL team, and that's one of the pieces in there that, however they want to, whatever process they want him to utilize, is we just want to make sure that's kind of one voice there at that point.
Yeah, because at that point, they have their own process or their own.
Yeah, exactly right.
And
obviously, and you're feeling like you're in such good hands with Kyle Shanahan. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason he's so successful. There's a reason he has the reputation for preparing quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks the way he does. Right? Like I said, at the college level, it's a little bit more of a mixed bag, right? You get some guys are really good at working with quarterbacks and helping them, and certainly others that aren't. It doesn't matter at what level, right? There's some great, top 25 programs who don't do a good job with that with their quarterback. So, when there's a need there, we're certainly happy to help. There's been very few exceptions that come to mind at the NFL level where the quarterbacks we work with, I think, have needed that.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. All right. Another question, Niner by nature. Coach, did you watch the game on Saturday? If so, did you think Trey's mechanics broke down, and how did he perform to you?
Yeah, so I didn't see it live, right? We were kind of blocked out here on the East Coast, and NFL Network didn't carry. I definitely saw the replay. I saw Jack went play-by-play on pretty much every pass play on Twitter. So I got the breakdown. I'm all over social media, like I'm sure most of you guys are. So at this point, saw the game like one take live and went through all the clips kind of along with all of you guys on social media through the week. So feel like I've seen it pretty well. Obviously, I think it's what everybody's talked about. And there's certainly some really bright spots there. I think you saw a lot of the things that you hope to see. His ability to be calm and to, create some space and avoid some pressure, keep his eyes downfield and keep things in the pass game alive. I think you saw some of that. You certainly saw his ability to make big plays down the field on the one long touchdown pass. So I think you saw some bright spots there. And then, of course, you saw some things that you wish you had back, a couple throws where, maybe he held the ball a little bit too long, trying to make too much of a play. A couple times where, it looked like his footwork was a little bit off and was a little late getting through some progressions. To me, I certainly lean toward the positive side of what I saw, right? Because I think what you're looking for, hey, is are we getting the guy that we thought we were getting, right? And I think the guy we thought we were getting was a really smart, intelligent quarterback, a guy who prepares as good as anybody to be ready for the moment. And then a guy who's got great arm strength, especially down the field, throwing the deep ball, and certainly athletic ability. So, I think clearly they weren't going to run the ball with Trey. I've been following practice, and I know they're putting all these different run plays, and he's getting, a couple of reps with the ones in theory just to do some of the quarterback run scheme. Obviously, you didn't see any of that. Whether it was coaxed into him to not run, and they wanted to see him play from the pocket, but certainly from a play calling standpoint, it seems like they left some things on the table. So if you think, okay, we're going to take about 30% of what Trey does really well and not utilize that at all, from the 70% he was left to play with, like I said, I think seeing him make plays down the field, seeing him buy some time, work through progressions, and make some really accurate throws. And there were a couple drops in there as well. And, but obviously no quarterback, and Trey included, is going to be happy about 5 of 14, right? And the reality is if he went 13 of 14, I'm not sure how happy he would be, right? Because there's always that throw you could have done, or that ball you could have got a little bit quicker, or, hey, maybe I got the crosser, but maybe I missed the second level that would have been a bigger play. And, I think to kind of cap the whole thing, my thought process was, man, first game in a long time, right? In a real situation. So just to go out there and handle the moment, I thought really well. And certainly when Kyle Shanahan, kind of schemed up a really big play, his ability to hit it, and kind of give everyone a chance to see a little bit of what he can do. But yeah, no, without a doubt, the expectation is he needs to take a big jump here going into this second scrimmage with LA, and, hopefully has a couple good practices here, over these next couple of days. I know they're practicing together here. So, I think they're definitely positives. I see the point about asking about mechanics broke down. So just to make sure I hit that point as well. I heard John make some comments about that as well, feeling like, hey, some of the things they worked on and thought were in really good place maybe broke down a little bit. I think that's what happens, right? The old, I'm using all these Navy SEAL quotes, but the old, like, hey, we don't rise to the occasion, right? We sink to the level of our training. That's kind of the thought process. We talk about that a lot in quarterback development. Hey, all of a sudden when the lights are bright and the defense is coming at you, we don't suddenly do things that we weren't doing all week. So there might have been a little bit of a sink down, and maybe some things from the past crept back in. From what I saw, it was mostly a lower body footwork thing. Like I said, it looked like there were a couple drops where he took a little extra step. And his movement got a little hoppy, got up on his toes a little bit. Things we had talked about before. Jack, I remember talking specifically about that before. So some things that we know when he gets into that area create some of the issues for him. But I think, by the scrimmage on Saturday, by Saturday night, Sunday morning, I think everybody who mattered knew it, identified it, addressed it, and now he knows what to work on. And at the end of the day, we got to remember it's a practice, right? And so you have to go out there, you have to, make some mistakes, and then now we have something to work on going forward. So like I said, if we don't see an improvement Saturday, then I think you're maybe a little bit more concerned than I would be based off just the first time out.
Well, let's focus on the mechanics side of things. Yeah. So how would you compare his mechanics in what you saw Saturday versus 19-year-old Trey at NDSU? I mean, there has to be some improvement, I would imagine, right?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's things that, and I just think of it like, hey, pre-draft prep and kind of post-draft prep, right? So remember, we had this really fortunate to be with him for 6 months, probably as long as you ever get a guy for draft prep. So there were certainly some things, from his time in college that needed to be shored up. And he used to drop the ball a lot more on the initial separation. It created his arm path getting really long. It caused the ball to take longer to get out of his hand, threw off the sequence a little bit. He had a tendency to kind of tilt into the throw, which would cause some of that, either high miss or low miss, where he had more of an up and down throwing motion. So his ability now to play more in a tight space, so, get his foot in the ground quick and rotate quickly without kind of leaning, like, more rotational, less linear, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what's allowing him to create much better power, more consistent power on his throws. It also allows him to finish more stable and under control, which is going to help him not only not leak that power that he creates, but allows him to stay more consistently accurate. So those are things that I continued to see Saturday, keeping his weight back and not like allowing his head to tilt forward on the throw. These are things that, to me, have stood through the pressure, if that makes sense. I think the things that crept up a little bit was kind of a lack of stability in his base before the throw, right? And so getting himself into a good position, full cleat in the ground, loaded up, ready to drive into the throw. Some of that's caused by, just a little bit of like lack of conviction, I guess, in where you're throwing. Does that make sense? Like a little bit of I'm drawing a blind. This is
if he's basically what you're saying is if he's maybe not seeing the field as well as he would like to, or he's not quite sure where to go with the throw, that's where that might creep up.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I think like, okay, so best case scenario, you're throwing right off the last, he had a couple of those throws to the outside, right on rhythm, last step of his drop, right on the money, right?
Yep.
Like really good. Or you're working through like, hey, it's 1, it's 2, it's 3, set and throw. So whether it's right on rhythm, last step of the drop, or whether it's just on time through a progression, those are kind of your best case scenario throws, right? You're on time, you're working through your footwork. It's going to look the same whether you're doing it on air or whether you're doing it live in a game, right? Now, when you have moments where it's a little cloudy, you're a little bit hesitant, you're a little bit unsure, back to what we were talking about, like, hey, are we anticipating it being open, or are we waiting a little bit longer to ensure that it's open? That's where you have a tendency to add things into the footwork because you're slightly off the timeline. It also leads to potentially holding the ball too long, and some of the issues with getting some late pressure and maybe a couple of the sacks that, probably could have put on Trey and is not getting the ball out a little bit quicker. So those are the things that kind of prop up or pop up rather, when you're just slightly off schedule, if that makes sense. So the good news is I don't even think of it as a mechanical issue because it's not like he's setting his feet and he's off in the sequence or it's something with his throwing motion that's bad. It's just getting himself in a consistent position before the throw. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. Here's a really good question, and I can look at this one two different ways. Raymond Martinez says, how does Trey process new information compared to other quarterbacks you've worked with? And this can be answered two different ways. So I'll ask you the first way.
Yeah.
So new information, I could look at it as a playbook. Let's say he's introduced to a new playbook. How would you see him compared to other quarterbacks pick up on those nuances of a new playbook?
Yeah, he's at the top of any quarterback. I always hedge because I hate saying, okay, this is the best guy that I ever know who did this, right? But the reality is I can't think of anyone who prepares and kind of handles new information, is able to apply it, kind of a quick learner. I don't know anybody who does it as well as Trey. And when we talked before the draft, I think it was the number one thing I mentioned that kind of jumped out at me, even when I started working with him, was like, okay, he's just different from the way he processes information. And a lot of it's just because of how meticulous he is with his preparation, right? And so it's not like, okay, like he sees things once and he just suddenly knows it. It's not like he's got this, sixth sense or whatever. It's that he puts the process in place to make sure he's prepared. And if that means he got to commit 4 hours to doing nothing, but he's going to make sure he does that. So the combination of the two of those, there's nobody that I've worked with that does it at a higher level.
Okay. And then let's talk about processing. I guess the way that I would look at it is possibly processing as far as going through their reads from one to the next to the next.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I think that's one thing that I think is where there's an area of development. And I think it's really an area of development for any quarterback, that makes the jump from college to NFL. We talk about the cliches again, like, hey, the speed of the game's different and like the windows close quicker, right? But these things are all true. They're the reason become cliches, right? So, obviously, people that can say, oh man, he's going from 1 year of FCS to the NFL. Well, that's a real thing, right? That's not just something we shake off. That, he's talking about making maybe a bigger jump than, say, Mac Jones had to make, from playing at a high level FBS. So I think that's definitely part of it. And I think that's what you're seeing him get more and more comfortable with, kind of each week at practice, and like I said, you get his first taste of it in a game situation on Saturday. And truth be told, maybe some things went a little faster than maybe he thought they were going to. And so now I think, to answer your question, Raymond, let's see this week. Let's see how quickly he processes and can make those adjustments moving forward. I think a lot of that is going to be told here as we go into the second and third scrimmage. But like I said, I'm willing to bet that he makes those improvements because I know the time he's going to put into making the necessary adjustments, right? It's kind of funny in that, like, you don't know what you need to work on until it's shown to you. It's just the reality of it. And so now some things were shown to him. And everything I know about Trey tells me he's a guy that once he's shown what he needs to work on, there's nobody faster in making those corrections.
Absolutely. Niner by Nature has 2 questions. He says, does Trey have other throws in his bag instead of just a speedball?
Yeah, it's funny. I think this is one of the things where, anybody who throws it really hard, like who's got a really big arm, it becomes this kind of instant criticism. It's all he does is throw. I think Trey's one of the reasons I think the Niners were so high on him coming out of the draft was he probably throws as good of a down the field deep ball. So we're talking high trajectory drop again. I saw another one from practice today, right, in the corner, to Jennings, right? I mean, that we're talking. That's the touch ball you're talking about. That's the over the shoulder to the outside, putting in the perfect spot. Some of the ones I've seen pop up on clips all over social media, dropping in between coverage. I think you're seeing more of that. I think the reality of what you saw, if you just watched a lot of his college film at NDSU, was, that was the ball he needed to throw to complete that pass. So you're working a lot of, intermediate concepts. So you're getting a lot of digs off the backside and a lot of, glance routes and things of that nature, and where he's working back to. So if you're in that 15 to 25 yard range working through second progression, well, that's kind of the ball you're throwing there, right? You're finding the open window and you're putting it on them. But certainly when you see his play action, deep ball game, adding touch, and something that quite honestly we worked on a lot during draft prep as well, making sure that, we talk about 3 levels, right? So your level 1, your 2's kind of like that, like 20 to 30, little bit of, kind of like the one to Jennings today. And then you got your true 3 ball, kind of like, hey, the throw it as far as I can, max velocity or max trajectory. So, the cool thing about the different speeds is understanding from a quarterback mechanic standpoint, that's power. So what we're doing when we're adding touch is we're just decreasing power. So from the waist up, nothing's going to change with our upper body mechanics. So we want his arm to still accelerate fast, right? The arm never slows down. We want the arm to be fast. We want him to extend fully through. Now he'll change the trajectory on what kind of angle he's extending. That'll change. But when we're talking about adding touch, we're saying, hey, don't fire the hips and create all that power to really drive it. Let's lighten up the power, but not change the upper body. So the good news there is, for a quarterback who's really consistent in his upper body mechanics, that ability to kind of change and add touch isn't all that difficult for him to kind of get comfortable with.
Right. And then the other one is, do you feel Kyle Shanahan played to Trey's strengths on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some extent he did. I think Shanahan's offense plays to Trey's strengths in general, right? It's, he's comfortable being under center. He's comfortable in the play action game and letting things develop downfield. Like we said before, he certainly didn't utilize his legs in a way that they may or may not want to going forward, right? I mean, that's still I think Kyle wants to keep a lot of that under his hat as well. And, and I know there, like whispers about what they're doing in practice and and at this point, Kyle's basically admitted, hey, he's going to play for us. We're going to have packages. We're going to do things with him that we know maybe he can do that Jimmy can't. So obviously didn't see that. So yeah, I think there's definitely a section. But I think that's normal, right? I mean, I don't think you're going to put your quarterback into a position where he's running the ball, 6 times in a scrimmage, and taking. So, I think about it when I think about our college QBs, right? They'll scrimmage and they're not live, right? Usually you go the whole fall camp and you don't get hit until week 1. So I think that's just, part of the process, which is why, once again, I don't think you look at a scrimmage and say, oh, how many yards, what was his completion percentage? How many touchdowns did he throw? And let that be the deciding factor. I think you say, okay, clearly they were working on some specific things. And how did he do in those specific things? Now, there were, like I said before, positives and negatives in just those areas. But I think we all got to be realistic. There's still a lot with Jimmy as well, with every quarterback across the league that they're certainly not showing yet at this point.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Jack, you look like you wanted to say something there.
No. I was agreeing with Coach, because I've kind of been saying that since the game was over with and all the different discussions about the play calling and whatnot. Kyle Shanahan was pretty straightforward with wanting to put Lance in some situations that weren't necessarily the most beneficial to him and let him work through it.
And I think that's part of this process, right? Because in practice, I mean, listen, you start out, you're like installing your offense, right? And every coach does it. They're putting you in perfect situations. Hey, if the defense runs this, we'll run our play that attacks that, right? And so you get that kind of the tempo down and you get the pay, but you're kind of setting up successful situations. And then it gets to a point where, okay, now you're not doing that. Now the defense is really, you go 1-on-1s and they're trying to, right? So you ramp up. And yeah, at this point, I think, if you want the quarterback to learn, then let's put him in the most difficult situations we can, because no one benefits by, him having it easy out there. Let's call the 6 plays that we know he does really well. Okay. So, I mean, fans will get excited. He'll look great. Right. But who does that help? In the same way that I'm sure Kyle will tell you the last thing he cares about is trying to win a scrimmage, right? Or a preseason game. It's just not, what those things are intended for. So. Yeah.
All right. Last one for you, Coach. He says, this is Javi says, last time Coach was on, I asked if he thought Deshaun Watson would become as talented as he is at the NFL level, and was wondering if he thinks Lance will have the same level of talent at the NFL. So did you think that the way that he played in college and his skill set would translate well to the NFL? And what are your thoughts on Trey's skill set and that translating to the NFL?
So I wasn't around Deshaun that early as a with Trey. So Quincy Avery, my partner in quarterback takeover, and we obviously all the work with Trey is the two of us combined. Since before draft prep and all the way through now. So Quincy was the one who had worked with Deshaun since high school. So knowing from Quincy, yeah, you obviously could see the talent there at a young age. You saw the way I think Deshaun had a chance to win 2 Heismans at Clemson, right? I mean, he was that talented at the college level, and obviously, to be able to beat Alabama and win a national championship. So I think you saw, that he was kind of on the trajectory to be really successful at the next level. I think I met Deshaun for the first time right as his rookie year in Houston. Deshaun's different. The things, we talk about traits for a quarterback, right? We talked about a ton during the draft. Why do I think Trey Lance is better than Mac Jones, right? We're talking about some traits. Well, Deshaun's like an interesting trait guy because he doesn't have the strongest arm by any means, right? He's obviously athletic, but he's not like Justin Fields athletic, right? He doesn't pull the ball down and run a 4.3 40. He's not big and physical as Trey. So, he'd be a trait guy. I think this is what led to Deshaun not getting drafted as high as maybe some people thought he could have been or should have been. Deshaun, similar to Trey, just the way he approaches the game, thinks about the game, can process information. Talking about Jack, some of the the accelerating of the decision making, things like where he is just on a different level. Speaking of Deshaun, so I think Deshaun maybe was a tougher. Hey, does this translate to here? So I think more people maybe be surprised at the success that Deshaun had because there wasn't that one trait thing you could put your finger on. To me, Trey's an easy, I say all the way up to the draft. I continue to say it now. To me, he's an easy one to draw the connection between, this is why he was so great in the NFL, because he does this, this, and this, and this so well, right? So you're talking about a guy who's got a legitimate, really, really strong arm, super athletic, and a physical runner as well. And then the way he prepares himself mentally. So those are three pretty good things to be able to check boxes on, which is why, I continue to see Trey really being super successful at the next level.
Absolutely. Jack, I know that you might need to head out. If you do, that's cool. There is one more that popped up. Of course, I said last question, and one more pops up.
You're good.
All right. Eric says, could Lance ever develop the crazy arm angle throws that you see from Rodgers, Mahomes, and Stafford, or is that just God-given ability?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an ability level that comes from, right? Some guys just, some of it's like some of the baseball background that we were talking about earlier, just guys that are really comfortable throwing from some different arm angles from maybe different experiences they've had. I know that's certainly the case with Mahomes. I think Rodgers, it's developed through just the creativity, right? Just the years of, being 10 years in the league, and, he's got some time where he can just kind of fool around and practice with some different things, right? I think it comes to you that way. So, yeah, I think you can certainly develop pieces of that. The question is going to be how important, what's the necessity of that, right? Because the reality is, there's some things that look really cool, and some things that are like wow moments, but you can probably get that same job done in a more traditional way a lot of the times. It's funny, one of the big throws we talk about Mahomes, okay, hey, he's running to his right and he's throwing back across his body. He makes that great throw, running right, throwing back to his left. Well, the reality of that is that's about getting your lower body in a good position to make that throw. It really has nothing to do with the mechanics of the upper body. And so as we talk about some of those, kind of flag escape throws, some of the things that we talked about, in all the pro days, right? With all the guys, Trey did one, Zach Wilson, Justin Field going to the left, flipping the hips, right? All those big The reality is that's about getting your lower body in good position to create straight line throws and generate good power. And then at that point, you can go traditional, like 3/4 release, or if you want to get a little side army, you can, but that's not what's creating the great throw. It's about getting your lower body. So, yeah, I think Trey's a guy that certainly is going to play around with some things as he moves forward. I think as he gets comfortable, he's going to be creative and allow his athleticism to take over more and more. But, do I have some big interest in him creating a sidearm throw, or do like no looks in game? That's certainly not high on my list of what I need to see from him.
Absolutely. Coach, as always, thank you so much for giving us the time. I know that everybody appreciates it. The 2 shows that you've been on previously have been some of my higher viewed shows on the channel. And, everybody loves hearing from you. If you want to follow Coach McEvoy, all of his social media stuff is exactly right under his picture there, QB Coach McEvoy. I've got everything in the description as far as following not only him, but QB Takeover, which is a good idea if you want to know more about Lance, especially as they get through the season and the offseason comes and you want to keep an eye on what's going on there. They always post some great things there. Coach, I know that you've got your podcast, right? What's the name of that again?
Yeah. I've been doing, it's called the Quarterback Q&A podcast. So if you really want to, if you like that little 2 minutes about, arm and lower body and sequencing, it's a lot of that. So if you want to hear a little bit more about the quarterback mechanics piece of it, go ahead and check that out. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And then as always, you can follow Jack Hammer. His Twitter handle's right below. And then make sure that you go to his YouTube channel. He's almost about to hit 2,000 subs, so congratulations there, Jack. And then same here. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. Hit that bell notification so you never miss a show. And Coach, Jack, thank you guys so much. Have a great night, all right?
You too, brother. Appreciate you guys.
Coach.